Hello, I'm Gus Downing, publisher and editor of the D&D Daily. And today we have with us Dr. Reed Hayes, research scientist, University of Florida, and director of the LPRC, and Chad McIntosh, vice president of loss prevention and risk management at Bloomingdale's, and a member of the LPRC's retail team. The Loss Prevention Research Council's mission is to provide fact-based LP solutions to members and the industry. The Loss Prevention Research Council uses fact-based research to develop crime and loss control solutions that improve the performance of its members and the industry. The LPRC was founded in 2001 by leading retailers including Target, Walmart, OfficeMax, CVS, the Home Depot, Barnes & Noble, and others in an effort to support the fact-based needs of the LP industry. To date, the LPR has conducted over 40 real-world loss prevention research projects for retailers and partners. The scope of these projects includes, but is not limited to, providing data and testimony for legislation and legal claims, beta testing and refining innovative loss prevention technologies, developing statistical models to assist retailers in attacking shrinkage, comprehensive product packaging, fixture and store design research, researching employee dishonesty and shoplifter dynamics. Their research involves industry publications, research literature, their members, innovative suppliers, academia, and in-house data. They evaluate a wide range of ideas and select those with the highest payoff potential as initiatives for field assessment. The LPRC explores, develops, and measures the loss reduction and financial impact of these initiatives using scientific methods including field experimentation, offender, consumer, and staff interviews, and focus groups, CCTV footage review, quantitative statistical analysis, and benchmarking. At the completion of the general field assessment, specific recommendations or action models are briefed and delivered directly to the LPRC members, and later made available to the industry. And the LPRC also conducts confidential proprietary research, training, expert witness, and consulting for both members and non-members alike. With that, I'd like to welcome both Reed and Chad here today. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Gus.
You know, Reed, you've been developing this council since 2001, and now you have over 40 members. You know, can you talk to the model itself and how the LPRC research team is driving actionable data to the industry?
Well, and those that are really driving it, Gus, are the retailers themselves. We are over 40 retail chains, and it looks like over 50 coming up here pretty shortly, and going on 100 total members, because we also, you probably know, include leading solution partners around the United States and other countries, as well as some of the product protection people from leading brands like Procter & Gamble, Bacardi, Diageo, Mead Johnson, and so forth. But the way things get done are through the working groups and action teams, and these groups and teams are led by retailers, like people from Chad's team. We're directed by a board of advisors, primarily retail decision makers, and Chad being one of those long-time board of advisor members. But the working groups are where projects are specified, they're targeted, and then with the retailers and one or more of our scientists, we work with them in the field primarily.
You know, obviously the Store Lab program is a vital component to your research. Can you give us some history about it and just how deep your research goes and how many Store Labs are there and can they be all over the country? I mean, when you mention that word Store Lab, it's like, okay, can you give us an idea about it and talk to it?
Well, until this year, we didn't even have a lab. It was a virtual concept. Thanks to Tyco and the University of Florida, we now have actually a lab that looks like a store that can be moved around. But having said that, the Store Lab is virtual, and any of the 40 plus retailers can have a store or two stores in that concept or that program. And so we innovate primarily in Gainesville initially, because us and our team are there, we can get to that store. In Gainesville, we've got going on 30 retailer stores of all types. You can imagine an AutoZone, Advance, and a Pep Boys, a Lowe's and a Home Depot. We've got everybody from, I guess we got Walgreens, CVS, public supermarkets, and on and on. So that's where we innovate. Now, we have stores in Jacksonville, Florida, and Waycross, Georgia, and Orlando because they're close. But we do have stores in Dallas, Chicago, and LA.
So it can spread out anywhere.
Anywhere. It's anywhere. In fact, it's now expanding to DC Lab. We're going to be starting work very shortly now in distribution centers as well. And those will be all around the country.
And those are in actual real world retail stores and warehouses and such, physical locations.
That's right. And so now we're not just looking at in-store crime and loss, by the way. Parking lot crime and loss is a big problem.
Right.
So an example is in the Big Lots store in Gainesville, Florida, in the parking lot, we're innovating all types of technologies, barriers, signage systems. We're experimenting there. In the store, we've got all types of electronic technologies going on. The TJ Maxx store in Gainesville, we've got, I'm going to say, at least 10 different video projects going on right now and so forth. So there's a lot going on in the stores.
You use the word innovating. Is that synonymous with researching, testing, and in putting products or programs out there and just kind of evaluating them and refining them? Is that what you're basically?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, innovation can be doing something new with something that's old or existing, or making it work better, or it could be devising new things to approach. So all of our research is what we call theory-based, but it's grounded in human behavior. How do we influence decisions in parking lots and in stores? How do we influence behavior in those places? And everything goes from there.
You know, so what's the difference, you know, in doing some research on your website, what's the difference between the store lab and the in-store research institute?
In that case, that's part of the lab. And we're looking at total solutions now, not just asset protection and loss prevention. I'm also visiting faculty in the Center for Retailing Education and Research at the University of Florida. And so there we're looking at not just not just lose less, but sell more too. So we're looking at all types of behaviors, efficiency, safety, and other issues now beyond loss prevention.
Which gives also LP another added benefit to be able to sell their programs and projects and hardware and such.
It does, and it allows the retailers to bring together cross-functional teams from their company and come into Gainesville, for instance, where you might have a buyer or two for a particular product category. They might have IT, they might have distribution, they'll probably have store operations in there, maybe store layout and design, and LP or AP. Now they're working together on a very focused issue, and they can come into that environment, get away from the phones and the meetings, focus on that, and then go to their store location that's in the area.
Reed, can you give us an idea of some of the projects your team has worked on, if possible? In what are you working on right now?
We actually have over 120 projects we've completed now, year to date. This is our 14th year. But they really range from a lot of statistical modeling. We worked with Chad and Ed Wolf and their team back at the Home Depot many years ago to help them better predict inventory loss levels in stores, in addition to what they already knew. But working forward, we've worked on models trying to predict employee deviance, crime in parking lots and things like that on the statistical side. But we're moving into a lot more violence areas, because as a brick and mortar retailer competes with online and other selling modes, you know, they want their places to be inviting, relatively safe, obviously, and they want to keep good employees feeling comfortable there. So we're doing a lot. For instance, we've got an initiative right now with CVS, Rite Aid, and Walgreens, where we're looking at robbery, particularly pharmacy robbery. What can we do to convince people not to come to the parking lots, come into the stores, or influence them while they're in there? But still, always looking at product protection. How can we help them put more and more products out on open sale, get the turns and the margins that they need, with cost-effective investments and asset protection. So it really does range in and outside of locations and whatever the problems are.
You know, in your news section of your website, you talk about LP Best Practice Task Force. Can you give the viewer a sense of where you are with that effort, the depth it goes into in the areas you're encompassing?
That was a particular project initiated by Ed Wolf a few years ago, and what we're doing is we have got a lot of information on active shooter or attacker, because they're now using knives and other things besides guns. We're looking at what they're doing on parking lot incidents, even on how to detect, surveil, and detain shoplifters.
The gambit, the entire gambit.
Everything, everything that's in their manuals, their SOP manuals.
So the task force its mission is to look at all of this and be able to produce a best practice manual for your memberships.
Right, and part of where we are, we're supposed to lead the industry as far as evidence-based practice. So if we come up, what we're doing right now is compiling what people are doing, but until, and then saying, okay, here's what's there. But until we've got some experimental research design or something like that that's very rigorous, we're not going to be calling it a best practice, you can imagine.
Right,
you know?
right.
Okay, here's common practice, current practice. And then if we've got now, we like to have 2 or more experiments, just like in medicine, that show the same thing. Then we say, okay, this looks like best practice.
Understand. Chad, as a long-term member, can you talk about the benefit to you, the retailer, the LP executive? I mean, what deliverables have you been able to show to your retailer, and what's the value for you?
I think it all started 14 years ago when Reed talked about the project that we had at Home Depot. Ed Wolf has always taught me to think bigger about a process. Actually, the very first meeting we had with that group, we really were talking about analyzing shoplift activity in stores, which is so narrow focused in the process. To think where it is today and where we are today with the LPRC is absolutely amazing. In that project that we ran at Home Depot, there was 138 bits of information we could pull out of a store or the environment around the store that really were indicators of where shrink was going in the store. So we got to the point where we boiled it down to the 8 most important indicators in the store. We ended up being able to predict shortage within 0.2% with 95% accuracy. So at that point, I was hooked on the process and the thought process and using evidence-based ways to determine the best solutions. Invariably, loss prevention guys a lot of times will throw a lot of things at a problem and never quite know what solved the problem for them. Being able to go through these models, use the resources with Reed and his team and the University of Florida, has helped me take a science-based approach to problem solving, if you will. The real value to the retailer is that we get to drive the agenda. So if a retailer has a problem or a challenge that they're really not quite sure how to solve, this is a way to really collectively be able to collect the data and look at a broad spectrum, quite frankly, and really come up with a solution that's going to have impact. And then when you take that into the boardroom, if you will, you've got a third party that's giving you data and results about a process or a problem-solving issue that you can take to the boardroom and really sell your management team on the effectiveness of what you want to do in your company.
You know, how is the LPRC evolving, growing, and developing right now? I mean, what does the LPRC need to do to drive value long term and in the future, in the retailer's eyes?
In the retailer's eyes, it really is. It's continuing to shift to an omni-channel focus. All those things that it's retail today in a department store has gone well beyond the simple transaction at a point of sale. So there's so many things going on, merchandise moving in and out and around our stores at a greater speed than ever before. So being able to help us go in and identify the exposures that we have, help us identify solutions in those processes is going to be critical for any loss prevention team going forward.
So from an Omni perspective, the LPRC is positioning yourselves to kind of help the industry navigate that. From a technology perspective. That's a huge position to take.
Well, and one example is actually Tom Meehan from Chad's team at Bloomingdale's. He heads up the Future of LP working group. And so this is you can imagine a coalition of 20 or more chains plus a lot of solution partners and brand owners in there collaborating, monthly calls, webinars, and then getting together physically at least once, sometimes twice here. It's going to be coming up, I think. And one of their first 2 projects right now is omni-channel protection. They're breaking it down into segments and then looking at, all right, how are we going to do this? What are the best ways? And if you're working with multiple chains, you can get a lot more done more quickly than if it's one chain innovating.
Right. Yeah. That's powerful.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell us about your Impact Conference, if you would.
We just had our 10th annual conference. We planned for 100 like we've had for the last 3. We got 200 executives came.
Congratulations.
Which was a good problem to have.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
outrun our coverage a little bit on that, but for food, but we made it. But Chad might be better at descriptor since he's a participant and not running around crazy like I have to, but it's a combination, a few general sessions, but primarily there's a lot of breakouts. We have live offenders in there that they're interviewing and interacting with. we'll take them to locations where we're doing innovation in stores and have a lot of cool social events too.
So what's the benefit to a member? And I mean, if a retailer or a solution provider joins, what's involved and how do they benefit?
You know, we kind of joke sometimes it's like a gym membership. You get out of it what you put in it. So, you know, you can go or not go, and then what do you do while you're there?
Yeah.
So we have guys that are very passive, some of them that they'll have one or two people listening on some calls, but they get a lot of value. Or they'll just come to the Impact Conference and they love the conference. They can also get in their Basecamp website. They can download, I think we've got over 800 research reports on there now from us and everybody around the world. We're constantly uploading PDFs. And they find value. But more and more you're seeing retailers plug in 3, 4, even 10 or 12 of their team members, not just corporate LP, but I mean field LP too, districts and regionals and above. And they're in these working groups and teams. They're working on product protection or ORC or data analytics, supply chain protection, whatever. That's how they derive their value, I think, by interacting with each other. The solution guys, they'd have to speak for themselves, but they're elbow to elbow. It's a non-selling environment, but they're listening, they're taking notes, and they're participating with these guys, elbow to elbow.
If I could add something, Gus, from
Sure.
a retailer's perspective, I know that I have a large part of my central team involved in the process and participating in different working groups. And the real value there is that the knowledge that they're going to gain in this process and preparing them to be VPs of loss prevention one day is going to be invaluable to them. They may not realize the extra work because they're not getting extra credit for it, but one day it will pay off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you both for taking the time and meeting with us today. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's it for this episode, and I'd like to thank all of you for watching. And until next time, let's keep them all safe out there.